On today's podcast, we have a naval aviator. Oh, and a father of two. Mr. Paco Chierici is here. When he was in the Navy, he flew A-6s and F-14s. Yeah, that's the Top Gun plane. He's now a pilot for Delta Airlines and also a novelist. He wrote a book called Lions of the Sky that is now out on Amazon, zooming up the charts. Where does he find time to do all this stuff? As a parent, I have no idea. But in today's episode, we'll talk about dyslexia, mirror writing, what to do when your kid starts playing steel drums, carrier landings with a jet aircraft, a crazy crash that someone had, boarding planes with kids, and of course the UFO Tic Tac story, which I just learned about. So join us now, DadLands Podcast.
Well, I've always been a writer. Even before college, writing was a thing that was important to me. And I aspired to write a novel my whole life. And I finally found the amount of time. My kids are just old enough, and I've got a good place going on in my career. And I found the time to sit down and write this book that I've been meaning to write for a long time. Hopefully it's the first of many. But
I'm always, when I see Stephen King, I go, dude, even if I just sat and just typed nonsense,
right?
There was no way you could fill enough pages. How does he do it? He has people now writing.
Yeah.
But he
I
wrote.
don't know. Stephen King, I don't know that he does.
I think he has a son, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does.
His son writes something now.
Yeah.
Some of those guys, it's like those guys who are artists, and then you're like...
Well, it's like Tom Clancy. He keeps publishing books. He's been dead for I don't know how long, but he's still...
Wait, you're telling me Tom Clancy's not writing from Beyond the Grave?
He may be. I don't know.
I honestly, I write as well, and it's always, the daunting task of sitting and writing a novel is pretty amazing, especially because you have two children.
I do.
How old?
My daughter's 18 and my son is 15.
We'll talk about college soon because she's looking at colleges now and stuff. Are you trying to bribe them their way into different schools?
Very much so. She didn't know she was a water polo player.
But she's a water polo player. Oh, nice.
It's
I would have
easier
gone
to
with
Photoshop the underwater pictures.
Yes. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
You just got to change the face and stuff.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
funny. I don't really want to go into that because we've covered that extensively, how people are doing that. But so you have two kids. That's still like an age where you're still involved. You fly for Delta Airlines, and then at night you got home and were like, you know what? Like while other people are like binging through The Crown on Netflix, you're like, yeah, I'm going to knock out a couple chapters.
Yeah, I wish it was that easy, but that's essentially what it is. But I've been writing basically nonstop for 20 years. I just finally decided to turn those endeavors into, writing a fiction.
Was this a
novel.
story that you had been kind of writing for years, or was it out of the blue and you said, this is exactly the story I'm going to do?
No, this story was, whole cloth. I started it about 5 years ago, or it took 5 years to write. It was a little bit longer than 5 years ago now. And it was longer than I thought it would be. I didn't know that it would be, I thought it'd be a couple of years to write a novel, but it's difficult.
How many years did it? Yes, it's hard. only from the point of a guy I've started numerous different projects, and the finishing part is really hard.
Yeah,
it's really difficult.
Well, once I get the first draft done, which honestly took like 3.5 years, just because you lose faith in yourself and you're reading what you wrote and you're like, man, this sucks. But once I got the first draft done, it actually the last 18 months or so was great. I really enjoyed it. So
the rewriting process.
The rewriting is awesome. I love it.
Do you?
Yeah, I really do.
That's typically my least favorite part.
No,
I like the first draft, and I'm usually like, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah,
it's like why rewrite? Just it works as it is. But you had to go in and go. So real quick, tell everyone the story of Lions of the Sky.
Sure. So as you mentioned earlier, I flew in the Navy. I ultimately flew for about 20 years. I did 10 active duty, flying A6s and F14s, and then 5 in the reserves, flying F5s as an adversary, which is a great story in and of itself. And it's just such an interesting and unique world that I wanted to write. And I love thriller books. I love action adventure books, however you want to.
Like what are some of the examples of some of your favorite books?
We talk about Tom Clancy and John le Carré, all these great spy and mystery and thriller books that they have really good characters. This guy Daniel Silva writes a great series about Gabriel Allon, and Michael Connelly is an LA writer.
Sure.
He writes phenomenal, the Bosch series, which have been made into TV shows. They're all great. They're super fun. They're really interesting characters. And they're super well written, and that's kind of the genre that I aspired to write.
Wow, you read a lot.
I do read a lot. I read a ton. Always have. I probably read a book.
Do you watch TV at all?
A little bit here and there, mostly sports. I'm a sports junkie. So.
Dennis, is that weird to you? That I'm always amazed when I meet people who don't watch TV.
Yeah, but then they write books.
Yeah.
Right. But it's, writing books
They
are...
accomplish
But isn't it
things.
just much easier in life just to sit back and watch some television?
Well, yeah, but then you don't write a book or accomplish anything. You're just wasting time.
Yeah. But how could you shut your brain off at night? Like at night I need TV kind of brings me down.
It's sports. Sports brings me down.
Still.
Yeah. I still watch the Celtics, man. Every
I
time
still
they're
watch
on.
the
I got
Celtics,
NBA
yeah.
League Pass. I watch every
But you're not
game.
originally from Boston.
No, I grew up in Rochester, which isn't that far from us. It's closer to Boston than Manhattan. Or maybe equidistant, pretty close.
So you just chose, because you're in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love
But
the
when
Bay
we were
Area.
in Boston, every year we were there, the Celtics were in
know.
the finals.
I know.
4 straight years.
Yep.
And that
solidified it.
seared its way into my consciousness. So
But now that I have kids, I can't sit through a baseball game anymore.
no,
I can't. I barely watch. I'll watch a game here and there. I watch the playoffs.
Yeah.
But with I also have little kids. We talked earlier because you're kind of you started late,
Yeah.
and I started ridiculously
Way late.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. Well, yeah, is it? Is it?
Well, time will tell.
I'm very tired. I am very tired. So Lions of the Sky is I'm sorry, I interrupted you on the story.
No, it's fine.
No.
It's your podcast.
No, it's
Do whatever you
not.
want.
Today's your podcast.
Okay, good.
Um,
So the story, like I said, it's a thriller, and I wanted to write a thriller. So at its heart, it's an action adventure book with, dogfighting and flying and all the cool stuff that happens in aviation that people love. And it's got this big bad guy, which is China, and a cool. It's a big bad guy.
Is there a bigger bad guy right now?
But it takes, the dramatic conclusion takes place in the South China Sea. So it's all of this, the action and the drama leads up to this point
Right.
where the real story, which is the people, obviously,
Sure.
we all care about the people the most. You got this flight instructor who's trying to deal with some stuff that has burdened him. He's lost some people and he feels some guilt about that. And then you've got a class, his last class that he has to deal with, that has 2 women in it, and they're trying to deal with some of the latent sexism that we have in the military, or we have everywhere.
Wait, there's still sexism in the military?
Yeah,
Remember the tail hook scandal?
Yeah, it's less than that.
It's less than that.
Less.
It's coming back down.
Yeah, but they go through their interpersonal stuff while they're learning how to fly the airplanes,
Right.
and at the same time you got the conflict brewing in the South China Sea, and it all comes together. At the
Well,
end.
women pilots. I mean, if that's not a movie, I feel bad because, and I told
Say that
told this.
again.
I feel bad because I should have read the book.
Yeah.
But before the podcast. But I mean, I have a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old. Yeah, the book's right here over my shoulder as I start to drop things left and right in our professional sound studio. But I never got a chance to read it because I'm waiting for the movie to come out.
It's a good plan.
So probably a year or two. With a woman today in today's market, a woman director, we get a couple women pilots. I mean, this thing sells itself.
Oh, yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, we should buy the rights right now,
I'll
Dennis.
take
you
a
and-
check.
Yeah, I mean, we might not
I
have.
have 20 on this.
You have 20. I got 40, maybe $40.
Done.
Is it autobiographical whatsoever? Were you an instructor?
I was an adversary instructor when I flew F-5s, but not in the sense that I didn't teach other people how to fly their airplane like the F-18s. But there's a lot of it. I mean, obviously, I drew from my experience and the experience of all the people I flew with in the military to create all these characters. And I will say this, that every single thing that happens in that book is based on something that
Sure.
really happened, down to the final battle scene with this submarine, this Chinese submarine that gets accidentally discovered by a Navy helicopter, thinking that it's doing trying to find an American submarine,
Mm-hmm.
and then dropping sonobuoys, and that actually happened. That story really happened. The Chinese launched a bunch of flankers. We launched a bunch of fighters, and they obviously called it off because we didn't go to war with China. But
Not yet.
no,
Not
but
yet.
that story really happened.
That's
and
funny.
It just stayed with me forever, and I'm
Right.
like, man, that would make just the greatest scene in a book.
Right.
And it does.
What was it like when you finished the book? I mean, trying to get it published. Was it hard?
It was a crazy challenge. Like, you don't really know what it takes to get a book published while you're writing one if you've never written one before.
I know. I haven't written one before.
Yeah.
You're getting sweaty. You're sweating a little bit over here.
Am I?
No,
Like on my forehead?
Yeah. Well, it gets crazy talking.
It's hot. These lights are hot.
The lights are.
The lights are hot here. Because it's so crazy. Well, you're a first-time publisher. You're an author, and you're all of a sudden did you just have somebody who took it out?
No, so you got to get an agent, obviously, and that surprisingly was the easiest thing for me. It's usually the most difficult thing.
Right. But you come with such a history that nowadays it's it's almost like a first-person novel where you're not just some guy in a room who's writing this book. It comes from such an experienced place that
for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a unique voice. Although there are a surprising number of former Navy and Air Force fighter pilots that write books.
It's funny too, because when I first got out, I got out pretty quick. I only did 5 years, and then I got out and started acting. And at that time, nobody was in Hollywood doing there were no military guys here.
No.
I kind of was like the only...
Pre 9/11, nobody cared. Right?
No, when I was here, everyone was like, don't tell anyone you were in the military.
Right.
Because it'll hurt you as an actor. They'll think you can't act because you were in the military. And now I do so many different charity things or benefit things, and I meet all these guys who are they're already planning. They're on base, and they go, yeah, I got a stand-up set at Comedy Store tonight.
No kidding.
And they're going off, or they're like writing something,
right.
or they're recording my album, and I'm like, really?
Yeah.
When I was in, it was never that way. We didn't think of anything until we got out.
Yeah, I mean, it's a different generation.
And now these kids are they are so motivated. They see a YouTube channel or whatever, and they're just... I mean, do you see that with your own kids where I just feel like kids are so motivated now, and if they don't know what they're going to do by the time they're 14, it's almost like they missed their window.
Well, my kids, so my wife and I, who, we the three
of us
all went to college together, right?
Yeah. Which is amazing to me still that you are with your college sweetheart.
Yeah, no, me too, and her too. So
yeah, we'll have to get to that to go because I don't know about you, but I know a lot of people who their marriage has not survived time.
Yeah.
Do you?
Of course.
Especially in the military.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you make choices. That's one of the
You know what, Jamie? You make choices. Choices are made here and there. And then, choices have been made by some other people. Then they were bad choices.
Yeah, of course.
People made some bad decisions and stuff, but yeah.
I forgot what we were talking about.
Your kids who are instantly motivated to know what they want to do from day one.
Well, so... The remarkable thing about my kids, and I'm sure it's the same with a lot of other people's kids, is that they come home from school and they do their homework. I don't have to tell them to do their homework. I never did homework unless, a gun was put to my head.
That's my daughter's. I'm trying to work on it, but she's in first grade too. So.
Yeah, no, it's different. When it matters and they're sort of 12, 13 years old.
Yeah.
And they start self-motivating. That was...
So your kids are totally self-motivated.
It's crazy.
Is Hillary the same way where it sounds like you guys are raising great kids, which is odd to me. How do you motivate kids to
I have
follow
no
their own
idea.
Path? Yes.
I can't give you any advice.
Everyone
on
I
that.
talked to, we had Jay Kogan on here. Jay Kogan wrote for The Simpsons, and his kid was going to Stanford. He goes,
Right.
"Oh, my kid got into Stanford. He's perfect SAT scores." And
Yeah.
when he came, we keep asking people "How did you do it?" And everyone has said the same thing of "Oh, I had nothing to do with it."
Yeah.
Certain kids are just on a path where they know it, and other kids are not.
So our daughter was born, and we had this perfect baby, and we thought, oh my God, we are the best freaking parents. We're doing everything right.
Sure.
We're
we all think that.
Feeding her organic baby food and only hypoallergenic toys or whatever. And then 3 years later, our son's born. He won't eat any of the food.
Right.
He doesn't do anything the same way, and we realized at that moment that it's all nature, basically. Yeah, I mean, if you lock them in a closet or something, then your nurturing gets involved.
You can give them the tools, but at some point, my daughter, some days I worry for the first one. She can't focus to save her life. And then the second one the first one spoke so early.
Yeah.
It was freakish. We were this kid's a genius.
Yeah.
She was only a few months and she was talking in full sentences and it was crazy. And she's the one, I think sometimes if it's too easy, they get lazy. And she doesn't push herself. We got her report card back, and her report card was, she's also cripplingly shy, I think, in public. And so she won't raise her hand.
Right.
And so I have to bribe her. I'll give you $1 or something. We don't know what to do. And so she goes, well, try to give them something nice each time they do. And so we try to set up this reward plan to go, if you raise your hand and you answer a question,
right.
Yeah. It's terrible that I feel like I have to do that now.
It is what it is. And the other thing we kind of sort of slowly learned over the years is that the growth isn't a steady progression, right? It's not linear. They go up and they'll be better than, they learn to speak earlier than their peers. Sure. And then they'll sort of sag below in certain areas. And it just kind of erratically moves up forward.
That makes me feel better
Yeah.
because she was lagged in one other, like her math or something. But we've been flying back east for a lot for some family stuff. And
Right.
so she missed like 2 weeks of school. And then, of course,
That's it. She's not going to Stanford.
I honestly was like, well, that's the end of that.
Stanford's out.
I felt like Stanford is out at that point. I was like, she's gone. And so all of a sudden, I was like, there's all kinds of apps and everything.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, the teacher's like, well, she can go on IXL or this other thing. And I go, what is that again?
Yeah.
And so every day we get like 12 emails from the school and from all these things. And you're like,
just delete them.
Trying to moderate of like, all right, so wait, what can actually help her? There was some email yesterday with some coding app. And so you could go on an app and, in first grader, they're trying to code stuff and build stuff together. And even I'm like, dude, this is past me.
Yeah.
And it's Common Core
yeah.
math.
Yeah.
She's in first grade. And I'm like, honestly, Hannah, I don't know what they're asking for.
Right.
It's this confusing thing and you have to show work. And I'm like, look, I know what the answer is, but I don't know how you're supposed to get there.
Our kids, like early in middle school, our kids' school had a parents' math night to teach us math.
That's actually not a bad idea.
Humiliating and also like incredible.
Incredibly helpful.
I was like, holy crap, that's a great way to do math. Why wasn't I taught that?
So
that's
wait,
brilliant.
Common Core you're saying is brilliant.
I don't even know what it was called, but the way they did it was so much easier and faster than the way we were taught, like long division or,
It is?
Oh my God.
Because I tried to show her, I go, look, just stack the two numbers on each other and then just add down the columns.
Yeah.
And she was like, what?
Yeah.
And so in the
Don't
Common
fight it.
Core, you have to go to, everything's on tens. You have to go count up to 10 and then subtract from, I was like, I don't have no idea. So I talked to the teacher. I was like, hey, is there a textbook or something I can look at? Because I'm lost.
Yeah.
And it's like first grade. It's terrible. I mean, what am I going to do when she's in like 6th and 7th grade? I'm gonna have to bring in tutors.
Yeah. Well, that's what so my daughter's got dyslexia or is dyslexic. It's not, you don't get it. You are that type of person.
Mm.
And so we had to get a tutor because I couldn't teach her the things that I thought I knew, which were wrong anyway, I'm sure. And that was a great tool because it sort of, as a parent, it takes all the stress and anger and anxiety out of that specific task and offloads it to someone else.
Right.
And those people are professionals.
Sure. Well, it's funny
and you
because
get a good one.
Until recently, dyslexia was like if you were in the 50s and 60s, like they did something about prisons too, like 75% of inmates are dyslexic.
Yeah.
And that's why in first grade, they kind of start to fall behind a little bit and they get frustrated. And instead of being diagnosed with dyslexia, they fall so far behind that then they, crime becomes a viable option. It's one of the few skills you really don't need to read that well for.
Yeah. And well, I mean, not to get too deep into this stuff, but dyslexia.
No, this is good because this is stuff people listen to because this will be one of the things. I didn't know that, but we had one other person who was dyslexic. A lot of actors are dyslexic.
Yeah, a lot of
and they read
interesting people are dyslexic.
Yeah, because they think in different ways.
Exactly.
What
I was going to say is like
How did you diaggnose it out of the chute?
One of the teachers at school.
Really?
First grade.
She saw it immediately.
Immediately, and it was revelatory to us because we didn't see any symptoms of that.
Could she read before that?
No, but first grade is kind of like a
sure.
It's you may or may not be able to read at that point. So we didn't accept that right away, but finally we were.
You're wrong, sir.
Well,
your child is dyslexic. I'm taking her out of this school. I'll be homeschooling her from now on. That's what some parents would do that.
No. Yeah.
Like some parents are like, yeah, I totally get that.
Yeah. Because she's a smart kid. She's, spoke early.
Sure.
So we knew she was intelligent. But one of the things, so the reading issue is a symptom of dyslexia. You know what I mean? It's like, that's not the problem. The problem isn't that they can't read well. That's just a symptom of some of the other brain issues that are going on. Like you said earlier, they see the world in a different way. And the biggest thing that kind of tipped the balance for us is that we did our own research and we found out that, alluding to what you said earlier, the issue with kids with dyslexia or other learning disabilities, ADHD and all that kind of stuff is that as they start to feel different and sort of removed from the class, it affects them emotionally more than the cognitively. So as soon as they start feeling badly about themselves, then you have a whole different issue to deal with, right? So if you can get on board the dyslexia train early and start treating that as it is, then they don't get that self-doubt. They don't feel stupid.
That's why they
became
inmates and prisoners because of that feeling of they weren't keeping up, and they didn't know why.
Because
they were
people thought they were stupid.
that people thought they were stupid. That's the problem.
And then they believe
and they
they're
still
stupid.
do in certain
Yeah,
school
course.
districts and stuff, and
Yeah.
certain
Yeah.
without the parents' involvement. So I mean, she's lucky that you guys are involved and stuff.
Well, as
so
a first grade teacher, I mean, that's the hero of the story, right?
Right.
It wasn't us. We resisted it as long as we could, but
it's so funny. My youngest daughter's a lefty.
yeah,
And so
that's bad.
It's crazy. But here's what happens. So she mirror writes, which
I don't know what that means.
okay. So Leonardo da Vinci he mirror wrote. He was lefty. He would write all letters. So she showed me her alphabet.
Right.
Every letter was backwards.
Wow.
Every letter.
Okay.
The K and the L, obviously A is normal, but then you
Sure.
would get to B, it would face the wrong way. C
Oh, that's
face the wrong.
crazy.
So if you held it up to a mirror, the whole alphabet was perfect.
Wow.
Kind of crazy.
Yeah.
I was like, save this. This is insane.
Yeah.
Totally backwards. And I'm like, I thought for sure she's dyslexic.
Yeah.
But I don't know. She's a lefty, so we don't know. A lot of people say it's just that they write backwards to start with because they're lefty because their hand's on the wrong side.
Who knows? I don't know. I mean, I don't know anything about that. But you know, the amazing thing is that she lives in a time and a place and an age where whatever it is, there's something to help her with that special.
Was there special classes or something she had to take, or were there special books?
Just a tutor to help. You know, so the thing with dyslexics, I mean, the super simplistic version of dyslexics is that, you know, for most people, they hear, they see things, and it's just a very straight path to the brain to get processed. For dyslexics, it's like a spaghetti noodle thrown against the wall. It just goes all over the place, and it finally gets there. So the processing takes forever, and there's a ton of repetition involved. Like 2 + 2 is 4. 2 + 2 is 4. And if they don't stay on it, if they take a break for a month or two and they come back to it, then they have to relearn 2 + 2 is 4.
Really?
Yeah. So it's an interesting phenomena. But it's, like you said earlier, it has nothing to do with intelligence. It's just that pathway is different.
Does she excel in other areas like music or art where a lot of times if they don't excel in one, like reading or something, they find a different path, or their brain sees things in an artistic way because of that dyslexia?
No? I mean, not that we've seen.
What does she love? What is
she loves? She's a rock climber. She loves rock climbing. She plays steel drums, which sounds weird, but for whatever reason, the school had a steel drum program in their music department.
She's going to be
somebody
dude when she goes to the Caribbean. She's going
to
destroy him on Jimmy Buffet, man.
Yeah.
I think that rock climber, the guy from Free Solo, is dyslexic. Did you see that movie?
Yeah.
What's his name? He has something wrong with his medulla oblongata that doesn't allow him to feel fear.
Yeah.
We were like
a big one.
Dude, especially that because I saw you did like 500 carrier landings.
Yeah, 400.
400.
Yeah.
The most terrifying thing on earth, right?
I mean, not on Earth. I would rather do that than go climb
Free Solo.
El Cap Free Solo.
Sure.
Yeah.
But
and I had an ejection seat.
You had an ejection. Yeah, you do have an ejection
Worst
seat.
case, I just pull the handle.
It's kind of true, but I mean, I still think out of the whole in the Navy, that's got to be one of the few things where you're like, I never landed on a jet on an aircraft carrier. We went from like helicopters and stuff, but to watch them just go and catch the wire. Talk about maybe the first few times that you were like, okay, this is happening. Today's the day. I'm going to go actually catch the wire.
Yeah. So, the funny thing is I don't remember it. Like, so we go out in the T2.
I was drunk.
Hammered.
Back in those days, Jamie, we used to drink hard before carrier landings. Oh, yeah.
I was so stressed out, so anxious in a good way, like pumped up anxious that, I mean, my adrenaline just, I wish I'd had the audio to that.
I can only imagine.
Amazing.
And you don't seem like, I've known you for a long time, and you never were the guy who kind of got flustered about anything.
Yeah,
you always seem pretty even keeled.
Yeah,
so to have that adrenalline surge going,
it was,
which is, by the way, what I look for in my Delta pilots. I really want a guy who's pretty even keeled on that one. Yeah, what was it? I mean, you don't remember it at all?
I kind of I remember that it happened. So the first few times we touched down on the ship. And this was in the T2 back in the day, and there were touch and goes. So you keep your hook up, and you're just kind of rolling in and waffling your way down the chute and touch down on the carrier and go to full power and go around. I don't remember the first 4 passes. They were all touch and goes. I just remember the time when I put the hook down and actually landed on the ship and stopped. And I mean, it was, yeah. And
in a T2.
In a T2, yeah.
Yeah.
And the A4, which was 6 months later, was, I'd done it once before. I've had, 6 more months of confidence.
Right.
I remember that pretty vividly, but literally the very first pass, I don't remember at all. It just happened. It got washed away.
I feel that way about a lot of things in my life.
Sure.
We're like, here we go.
Well, do you remember like when you got on stage to do comedy for the first time?
No.
It must have been terrifying.
It was absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah, my heart, honestly, it still sometimes gets pounding to the point I'm like, you've done this before, Jamie. Just relax.
Yeah.
I mean, do you still sometimes when you're flying, do you still get that like, oh, I'm kind of a little juiced today? Or you're always calm?
No. I mean, look, flying a 737 with 180 passengers is challenging. It's enjoyable, but it's nothing in terms of a challenge like landing an F-14.
Well, you do a lot of dogfighting still, don't you? You were talking about, because I wrote that down, you said F-5s. That's a whole different story.
Yeah.
Is that your, do you still go do that, I think, don't you?
I do in a Yak 50, which is an aerobatic airplane. I got a bunch of friends. We all have the same type of airplane.
And you guys just go up and mess with each other?
Yeah.
Are the planes rigged so that you can see when it's a kill? I guess when they're in your sights,
No,
or is it
I
kind
mean,
of like
it's
I got you? You
Yeah.
didn't. It's like tag with kids. You didn't get me. I totally got you.
Yeah. Basically.
It's like flag football. You didn't know. And then down there drinking beers later, it's like you didn't get. Oh, I totally got you, dude.
Essentially. Yeah.
Can you imagine back in the days of like the Red Baron, Rick Tofin or whatever, when they're in the bi wings, right? Biplane, and they are like just going at each other.
Yeah.
I mean, that to me in like World War One.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's what we kind of
did any of those
now.
guys ever survive? I think in World War One, survival was about 10% or something. Of those guys.
And they didn't wear parachutes either in World War One. It was
That's
considered unmanly.
That's true.
The parachute existed, but they didn't wear them.
Nah, we don't. They could save your life. That's for pussies.
Yeah.
I'm not.
If I get shot,
I get shot down. The Great Waldo Pepper is still one of my favorite.
Awesome
planes,
movie.
but,
Yeah. Nobody knows that movie anymore.
But you think about those. That's one they should reboot. It's about the barnstorming days, and they wing walked. People would go out on the wing, and it was a show. They still do. Like air shows are still probably the scariest, most accident prone. You see these things every now and then. You see one go down at the air shows and stuff because they're doing insane stunts.
Lots of crazy stuff, and obviously the military guys at the air shows they're super well rehearsed, and all the maintenance is great. But I mean, a lot of the accidents that happen are people that are wing walking. There's some horrendous wing walking accidents. I mean,
he's like, "What are you doing, dude? Get back in the plane."
Yeah,
I know.
Really tragic stuff.
Yeah.
And it's all on video these days, right? Because everybody's got a cell phone.
Were your kids? You were still in when your kids were born.
I was in the reserves.
Oh, you were already out.
Yeah, I was out of active duty. But
how many years active did you do?
10.
10.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the commitment then. 8 after wings or something.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then they're like picking you guys for commercial airlines at that point.
Yeah, so when I got out, it was October 96, and nobody was hiring except United and Delta opened up their...
Why'd you get out?
For family.
It is, right? Because my
brother
brother
was
was an
hates
admiral.
hearing this, but yeah, it was definitely for family.
Did you want to stay in?
I loved it. I loved every minute. If I was single,
remember
I would have stayed in forever.
Yeah. Like my brother was a ship captain. He was a captain on a cruiser and stuff. But I know with his kids, he was gone for years at a time.
Yeah.
Where they didn't grow up with him. He was off sending checks home from wherever he was. So it's got to be hard. Yeah. And it is one of the things, because we have a lot of military guys who listen to this. And it is one of those things about raising kids. It's, you talked earlier about making choices and stuff. And I remember being on the ship and we would pull into the port overseas.
Yeah.
And married guys, that was a running joke with the crew. They'd go, let loose all lines. And they take their wedding rings off. And I'd be like, what's happening?
Yeah.
And they'd be like, hey, we're overseas. And I go, it was kind of almost part of the lifestyle. That was, and even if you didn't do it, it's almost like people just assumed you did because you're overseas and stuff, which...
And I think it was a different time back then, too. There was a lot of...
But you do see it's really hard to raise a family, I think, when you're in the military. So I think that's pretty, cool of you to do that, to then stay home. So then you said, well, I'm just going to get out and get a commercial job, and then...
I didn't know what I was going to do. So literally my last 2 years in the Navy, I was having the time of my life flying. I was flying the F-14.
Your wife's not going to listen to this, is she?
Oh, she's heard this all before. But I loved it. But I knew that, it was kind of a decision point.
Right.
If I stayed in and I got all these great offers for next assignment to go be a RAG instructor, which
you would have been.
I would have been a RAG instructor. Yeah. And that was one of the jobs that I really always wanted. And but I was gone. Out of those 2 years, I was gone for 18 months.
Right.
And I just knew that that was the decision point. It's like, kind of where's your path going to take you? And I really like my wife a lot.
Sure.
And
you married her. You made a choice back in the day. Yeah.
So I decided to get out, and it was really tough. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't want to be an airline pilot. I mean, I'm glad I did become one because it afforded me this, great lifestyle to be able to write books and stuff like that. But it wasn't like there are a number of people that get into flying in the military so that they can go be airline pilots.
Yeah.
And I definitely wasn't.
You never seemed like that guy.
No, and
because I knew you in college, and you were like, we all knew from day one you were going to go fly. There was a handful of guys, and we were like, you just were like, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I didn't care. I was there going to college, and I was going to end up doing military stuff. I failed my eye test, which is kind of, it all worked out for the best. But I also didn't have the discipline that you guys all, like, you were pretty disciplined, and you're like, yeah, I'm going to go fly and stuff. So I knew that there was a handful of guys that you knew exactly. We talked about our other friend, Sean Mulvaney, who went to SEALs and then became a doctor. Yeah. But he was always, from day one, he was like, I'm going to be a SEAL. And back in those days, we were like, it's pretty hard. He goes, yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
He was also the guy who he bench pressed, like he worked out like a lunatic, and he was bench pressing, and his pectoral muscle, he was benching so much it ripped off his bone and all compacted in the center of his chest. You remember that?
Yeah.
You're like, and he's like, yeah, I'm okay. I just ripped my pectoral off. Like, oh, that dude's going to be a SEAL. Yeah. That's exactly right. Yeah. With me, they were like, Jamie will do a couple of years, and then he'll probably get out and do stand-up comedy, I think, at this point. We don't know what's going to happen.
Man, it worked out.
Yeah, I guess it did in the long run. But I think that's kind of cool of you to do that, because I think a lot of guys wouldn't do that in this world, where they're like, it is. And I think that's a big part of having a family is that, and I've had to come to grips with it, that I was institutionalized as a bachelor. I was in my late 40s, like, wait, what? I'm going to have a wife and kids, and now I'm like, what do you need, honey?
Yeah.
You want me to do the dishes? You're like, you just learn the hard way, kind of like, but I do love it. And so it was one of those things where it kind of overtook me, and now I'm like, whatever I have to do. We never go out anymore. We just stay at home with the kids. That's what we do.
Just wait. You'll go out again.
One day, when I'm an empty nester. We were talking about it earlier. It's like, I
Not
can't
even, man. My kids are old enough now that we just leave them at home. Go out for dinner. Just go out. Couple blocks down the street.
But when you first got out, they were young.
Yeah, they weren't even born yet. They were.
You hadn't had kids.
No.
So you were still
duty,
in, that's right.
Yeah. So about a year or two after getting out of active duty, you start having kids.
Oh. Was she like, I want to have kids? I want to have kids.
No,
I want to have kids.
Not rapidly. I mean, I did. More than her, maybe.
You're not the person I thought I knew.
Hey, I come from a big Italian family, man.
That's right. You're the youngest. You're the oldest of four. Four?
Yeah.
Youngest six. All right, we're halfway through. We have a little quiz we want to give you.
Oh, Jesus.
Well, Top Gun 2's coming out.
I do.
And we went in the year after Top Gun came out.
Yes, exactly right.
Yeah. By the way, I mean, you were married.
I was not married.
You weren't married, but you were still seeing.
Yeah,
you were dating the same girl. I mean, because you had wings. I even went to ladies' night at Miramar.
I was based in Miramar.
I went to Miramar on Wednesday nights, and I wasn't even a pilot.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, this is insane, dude.
Yeah.
Like women were just throwing themselves at people.
Yeah. So when I was a sophomore, this is what hooked me into flying. When I was a sophomore, we did the Court Treatment thing where you go out and
yes.
I got a ride in the backseat of an F-14. And it turned out that the guy that flew me was the dude that did most of the flying in Top Gun. But he never told me until I saw it later when I watched the credits 9 months later. But it was a Wednesday.
Uh-huh.
And so I was in his backseat as this 19-year-old kid with a flight suit with no patches or no, rank or anything. And we flew against another F-14 with a new pilot in his Rio. And then we debriefed. They took me to the club on a Wednesday night. And I was just remember leaning against... post with a beer in my hand thinking, I'm never leaving.
No.
This is Nirvana.
Did you do a submarine too for a few days?
Yeah,
I did a sub.
I was on a submarine for 3 days underwater.
That's so funny. I did the same.
Marines. We did the week with the Marines.
My court trimid was in Beeville though. I had a different one. And I was in I flew the T2 in the T2, which was amazing, fully acrobatic and crazy, but not an F-14.
No, but still.
And we were at I don't know if I've told this one before. We were out the night before, and I was at some strip club with 20 guys, and we're up all night. And then I got in the plane and flew, and the dude, of course, tries to make us all throw up.
Yeah.
And I didn't throw up, even though I was hung over like a pig.
I did throw up.
Did you?
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, I thought I was invincible, and then I was like, but that's so funny. He made you throw up?
Well, he didn't make me.
In the glove?
Doing dogfighting. No, I had they were smart enough to give everybody a decent-sized
funny.
Bag.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
I still remember. I have a photo of that. I was like, oh, some magic, man. I know. pretty amazing. All right, so here's the quiz. The quiz
Okay.
is about Top Gun.
All right, good. One or two?
Just one.
Okay.
2 hasn't come out yet. Yeah.
I saw Top Gun recently with my 15-year-old son, and I hadn't seen it in years. And at the end of it, I was like, this is a bad movie.
No!
Not good.
No, that's BS.
It's not good.
Dennis.
I was so embarrassed.
It's still
It's a
good.
cultural icon.
It
It's a
is.
classic.
It is.
Still good.
It is.
It is.
There's
still.
a lot of, not that there's anything wrong with that, but there's a lot of men in their underwears hanging around locker rooms.
Yes. Just in towels, like just
in towels.
talking to people way too
Yeah.
close.
I was
That's
like-
what it was like, right?
That's
It was
exactly what it was
100%
like.
the way it was like. Yeah. Tidy whities pulled up to your navel. Or
Didn't you just
higher.
walk up to girls and go and start singing?
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah,
That was the good part of the movie.
that was the good part of the movie.
Yeah, so I prepped him before watching it. I'm like, this is what your dad did. This is why your dad is so freaking cool. And at the end of it, he was like, cool, Dad.
Are you any good at volleyball?
No.
That's funny because what I did is when I got out, I played beach volleyball in San Diego
Yeah.
for years. It was great. Oh, it's such a good
All
time.
right, hit me.
All right, here we go. Goose.
Yeah.
What was his real name?
Gossage? No.
Well, you know what's Maverick's real name?
Oh, Pete Mitchell.
Yes,
Everybody knows that.
everybody knows that. What's
Yeah.
Goose's real name?
I could probably come up with it, but it would take
Take
a
a
while.
shot. What is it?
Uh,
Just wing one. I also picked. I did not pick the easiest question.
no, that's fine. Thank you. I'm going to go for how many questions?
6.
Oh, geez.
Goose. His real name? Nick Bradshaw.
Nope, would have never come up with that.
0 for 1, Dennis. 0 for 1.
Okay.
What month did Goose die?
What month?
Yes. And you got a 1 in 12 shot.
I realize that. Why would that have come up?
I don't know. It was like I was Googling trivia. I did not know this one. I knew the Nick Bradshaw one.
July.
Yes!
On the money.
Oh, he got it. 1 for 2. Not too bad. What was Kelly McGillis's name? Body mouth. Oh, I'm gonna have to edit.
Charlie.
It is, but what's that?
That's it. Charlie.
I'll give it to you.
Okay.
Charlotte. Charlotte Blackwood is her name.
Yeah, I wouldn't have gotten that either.
That's okay. I'm gonna give it to you for Charlie. That's pretty good. Who? God, what was the quote? Here's one. What's the famous song?
You never close your eyes at night.
No, that one's too easy.
Great
What?
Balls of Fire?
Yeah! He does know that one.
Wow.
Good for you.
3
Great
out of
Balls of Fire is the song that Goose plays.
Yeah. With Meg Ryan sitting on his lap. That's a good scene.
That is a great scene.
Yeah.
All right, here's the last one.
Okay.
Who says the line, crash and burn, Mav? What character?
Oh, it was Slider?
It is Slider.
Yeah.
You know what?
But
5
you
out
saw
of
it
6.
recently.
5 out of
Yeah.
6.
No, it
That's
wasn't that
5.
right.
That's not too bad.
Yeah.
Nick Bradshaw, I wouldn't have got either, man.
Never.
What was your call sign?
Paco.
Just Paco?
Yeah.
Boring, dude. You're
I
like the
know.
most boring. You were like married. You had a girlfriend. They just gave you your
Not at
regular
the same
name.
time.
You just had your regular name.
So, yeah, I mean,
Did you
For
guys
those of you that
break
don't-
up for a few years while you were in the Navy?
no. I've been called Paco since I was born.
Sure. It's Francesco.
Francesco, yeah.
Sure.
And I got in the Navy, and man, my name is like ripe for dozens of call signs,
It
but
sure is.
none of them ever stuck. And I wanted one.
What were the ones you wanted?
Anything. I mean, like they came up. My last name's Chierici, but it's mispronounced Cherokee frequently. So like, hey, Cherokee or
That's not-
Chief or
Cherokee's
Indian
not bad.
or Cherokee Jeep.
Sure.
Like whatever. They were
Geronimo?
trying. I even crashed a plane once, and they tried to give me a call sign from that. And
Backup. Does
Yeah.
everyone else have a backup on that? Jamie, I forgot. I crashed a plane once. What did
Yeah.
you crash? Did you
crashed-
eject?
No, I crashed an F5 in Reno.
It sounds like a weird gambling thing of like,
Yeah.
dude, I was in Reno. We had a bad run on the tables. I crashed an F5.
Crashed an F5.
I crashed an F5.
Yeah, so I landed, blew ultimately both tires one at a time, and skidded off the end of the runway.
Is that the story you're sticking by? The tires blew?
Yeah,
It's the
it
tires.
just blew.
The tires just blew out of nowhere.
Yeah.
It happens sometimes.
And the plane rolled over. The canopy came back, and it cut my neck. I got a little scar here. I don't know if you can see it, but almost got my head cut off.
For those of you who can't see, he's pointing to where his, I believe, not carotid, that's in the leg. The jugular vein is just right there.
Yeah, so it cut me just deep enough to leave a scar,
but not kill you.
Not kill me.
That's
like I came to a rest upside down with a big piece of plexiglass sticking to my neck.
Were you unconscious? Do you remember that one?
I remember that vividly.
He remembers the crash, but not landing on the carrier.
Yeah.
What's
But they tried to give me, like, there were dozens of ripe call signs that potential.
Crash is a good one.
Crash, boom, boom for both tires. The plane, the rudder was, it looked like an orca's tail, and it was sitting in our hangar right outside the ready room for 6 months.
Sure.
You know, just like this insult.
Orca?
Every time I walked in.
Orca would have been a good one.
Orca, they cried, everything.
What
they
were
even
some of
changed the name on my helmet, which is like a big deal. But for some reason, it just didn't stick, and I was totally up for it. Like,
That's
sure,
totally
give me a
BS,
call
man.
sign.
Potty mouth. It's okay. We'll delete it after.
Yeah.
Potty mouth.
I screwed up.
Listen, we military guys. We swear. I'm trying not to swear. Mainly because I have a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old and stuff.
Yeah.
Did you swear around the kids when they were
I
young?
didn't when they were younger. Now I do. Yeah.
That's funny. What were some of the best call signs from some of your buddies? What's like your favorite call signs that
Oh my God, there are just dozens of them here. I look in the book because I can't really think of them right now. But unfortunately, I have a dedication to a lot of them that passed away in the back of the book.
So some other guys had some crashes that didn't go well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, they still have great call signs, and I use a few of them in the book too. There's this guy.
Well, that is a profession that is kind of. I feel the same way about stand-up comedy. About
Crashing and burning?
like people dying left and right on doing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We work. It's like crab fisherman, F-14 pilot, and comics have got to be some of the deadliest.
Right.
You know, because road comics just drinking the drugs are deadly.
Yeah. Of course.
So what are some of the call signs?
All right, let's see. Luther Meat Hook. Meat Hook's pretty good.
Meat Hook's not bad.
Yeah. Fats Domino. Tony Fats Domino. Graham Hob Higgins, and Hob is H-O-B, head of bone. The guy earned it. I mean, a great guy. Unfortunately, he's passed away, but he's a solid character in the book.
Well, it's kind of cool that you memorialized all these guys.
Yeah.
We'll have to write
they're
a
all
suspenseful
great
thriller
people.
about stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
and in international espionage, a spy comic, and then we can, kind of... Because I worked with Greg Giraldo, I've worked with Freddie Soto, all these guys who then passed, and you're like... Anyway.
John Lick Mawini.
John Lick Mawini. Is that his way? What?
John Mawini.
Is
Call
it
sign Lick.
Lick Mawini?
Yeah.
All right, that's not too bad.
No, there's tons more.
There's a lot of homophobic overtones in the military. But we used to be. I mean, it was just a natural thing.
Way more than there are now, yeah.
Way more than there are now. Back in the day.
Anyway, if it's homophobic or not, it's just if it's funny, right?
Sure.
Or insulting in some way.
Well, I saw Mel Brooks the other day, and he's like, it's over. Political correctness has destroyed comedy. Because we were talking about Blazing Saddles or something, and it was like between the... I watched 48 Hours, and they used unbelievable homophobic and racist slurs and Blazing Saddles, but you can't do it. It's so funny as a comic nowadays. You're on stage and you're saying something, and you're like, oh my gosh, is somebody going to film this and put a soundbite online, and then I'm going to be just ostracized from the universe off of it? Yeah. What do you think about political correctness nowadays? Is it too much?
I mean, I think it is. People are overly sensitive and overly hair triggered to being offended. Right?
Yeah, I mean, it's so crazy.
Yeah. The whole point of comedy is to sort of scratch the itch, right? I mean, to make...
Yeah. When you used to go into Spencer Gifts, and they'd have a whole book of like Polak jokes, or it was like that was it. That was a whole book of them, and then it would be Irish jokes, Mick jokes, or something, and you would go, "Oh, that is true. Irish guys drink a lot."
And Italian jokes.
And Italian,
jokes.
Forget about it.
But you're talking about Blazing Saddles. Like,
Yeah.
I always bring that up. The very last, I think it's the last line of Blazing Saddles. But not the Irish, right?
That's right. And he goes,
I'm not going to say the rest of it.
Yeah, exactly right.
Because it's not politically
It's
correct.
so terrifying. We can't even quote. I just remember that uppity blank hit me in the head with a shovel. Like
Right.
he was very prolific with the N-word and some other races. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, when I was a kid, my father had a sign in our house that said Irish need not apply. And we used to laugh, like joking. But in reality, like in the 20s and 30s, that sign was the real McCoy of like, no, seriously, we're saying do not apply. You're not working here. You're Irish. I know. Now I understand that you have you've seen some crazy things. Oh, this is a friend of yours. You have a UFO story.
I do have a great UFO story.
You know, I hosted a ghost hunting show for the Travel Channel recently, and so I've met.
It's not the same thing, you know that.
No, well, here's what happened. A buddy of mine, who I worked on the show with, Peppermint Fatty, who listens to this all the time. He is a huge UFO guy, and he just went to Area 51 in that crazy rush where they were like, "We're going to take over Area 51," and you're like, "There's 12 of you, and they're going to shoot you if you go anywhere near the gate."
Yeah.
But he went, and he's a big UFO guy. And when I told him you were coming on, he knew the UFO story, and he was like, "You got to have him tell the UFO story."
Okay. So I will say I'll probably tell a synopsized version of it.
Oh, you should definitely cut it down because I saw a 23-minute version
it's a long,
of it on YouTube.
it's a relatively long story.
Cut right to the UFO.
But okay, do you want me to tell people where they can go find it online, the whole article?
Sure, we'll put a link to it.
Okay.
But yeah, it is crazy because you guys are up in the pitch black. I mean, I'm always amazed by what you see, and I mean, it seems like
I've never seen anything.
You've never seen anything.
I've never seen anything even remotely weird.
I mean, you honestly don't even remember much of it. It sounds.
I don't remember
landings. I don't remember
anything.
I didn't see anything.
Exactly.
Were you flying the plane? I'm so confused by what you were doing.
Cough medicine.
It was just you just taking off the easy part.
All right, so the story is a good buddy of mine, and his name's Dave Fravor, was the commanding officer of a 2-seat Hornet squadron. So he and his wingman, which means there were 4 people, took off, and they were asked. They're off the coast of San Diego, and they were asked to go check out this radar contact that one of the ships had seen but didn't know what it was. And they go out there to check it out, and as they're descending to look at this spot of water that looks like something is going on over it, the sea's otherwise calm, and it's a beautiful midday in Southern California. This white object, roughly the size of their fighter planes, started coming up towards them. Shocked the hell out of them.
Out of the water.
Above the water. It was hovering above the water. So there was something making that water, disturbed or frothing or boiling, whatever. And there was this thing that was kind of moving erratically on top of it. Mm-hmm. And as they're going down to check it out, it starts coming up towards them, kind of mirroring them as they're going down. And ultimately, my buddy Dave digs kind of nose low in this fighter maneuver to try and rendezvous on this thing, which ultimately came to be called the Tic Tac. And as he is closing on it, it turns towards him and accelerates past him at multi-Mach speed. So it basically goes so fast. They kind of see it leave, but it disappears faster than anything anybody's ever seen.
Feels like Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Right at the end, that thing just goes shoom and takes off.
Right.
Shoots out. Okay.
And so they get back to the ship and they debrief, and everybody's making fun of them. All the intelligence guys are literally wearing tinfoil hats. The cartoon,
because they told the whole story as they were.
Well, they're transmitting as it's happening, right? So other people, the ships, other people are listening.
The intel guys are typically the funniest guy on the ship.
Yeah. And the next day they were mocked in the airplane cartoon, which is pretty standard.
Who named it Tic Tac?
Tic Tac.
He
did. Dave did.
Because it looked like a little white Tic Tac.
Well, they asked him to describe it, and he said, "Okay, it was basically the size of my airplane. So 46 feet is the F-18 length, roughly, and it was featureless, no windows, no wings, no engines, no exhaust gases, nothing." He said, "Look, it looked just like a Tic Tac. It was a 46-foot Tic Tac, and it just flew right by us and went away." And so he debriefed with intel, and they made fun of him. He went to the gear room, and his squadron subordinates were getting ready to go do their training mission. Right. And he said, "If you see something, make sure you record it. Get it on tape," because he hadn't gotten any video of this incident.
Why didn't he?
He didn't have a forward-looking infrared on
So he didn't have FLIR. Okay.
He didn't have FLIR in his jet.
Okay.
But the other jet
has it.
That was going out had it.
Convenient that he didn't have it, right? It's Had anyone? So does anyone else ever see Tic Tac again? Tic Tac.
Tic Tac.
Tic Tac. No one else sees it again.
Well, so those other 2 guys went out and they recorded the FLIR footage, seeing this thing on their FLIR a few hours later, like 3 or 4 hours later, and that's the one that you could see on the internet. It's called the Tic Tac video. People can see it. But yes, to answer your question, in 2015, and I don't know anything about this because I don't know those guys, but there was a bunch of Navy guys that saw some weird stuff off the East Coast, off the USS Roosevelt. Again, Hornet guys. And theirs was a little bit different. They saw like formations of things, and there's like some sort of tumbling object, like a gyroscope that's coming at them and stuff. It's really weird. But that video is out there as well.
I just feel like if there was something like that, you couldn't. I mean, people like have private things that everyone on Earth sees. Like, there's no secrets anymore.
I agree.
I just feel like it's really hard to justify.
Yeah.
I always feel like there's a logical solution for something. I do think there's life out there somewhere. There's jillions and jillions of stars or whatever.
Right.
So somewhere, but I just wonder if it's been here. Dennis, do you think it's been here yet? Do you think?
I'm just wondering if they started calling a guy Tic Tac.
I was gonna say. By the way. Terrible call signs earlier, but Tic Tac's a pretty good.
It would have been a good one.
That's a good one.
He was the squadron CO, so they were not going to change his call sign.
I mean, is that common? Do a lot of guys have like?
No.
Imagine the first people to see the Northern Lights, like Aurora Borealis or something, be like, "Holy, what is happening?"
Yeah.
Like, I do think there are magnetic anomalies and lighting patterns and certain things that happen where you see something and your brain wants to see it a different way.
So my whole. Like the second most common question that people ask me is, have you ever seen, a UFO or something like that? And I always said no, and I didn't know anybody that had seen one either until I heard this story. And the remarkable thing to me, as someone who doesn't really care about UFOs, or I don't spend any extra time thinking about them, but it was all four of the people in that airplane saw what Dave described, and there was radar data on the ship, and everybody heard him talking about it. And then the next plane went out and they caught it on FLIR video. So I believe that they saw something. What it was, I don't know. Whether it was extraterrestrial, whether it was a super secret, program that
just because it was white and had rounded edges, I'm going to say it was made by Apple. Yeah. I'm going to say Steve Jobs had created something with Bill Gates. They're billionaires. They're down. They're cloning themselves.
And Bezos.
Yeah, and Bezos. They're all involved. There's a cloning facility down there.
It's 2004. When was it? Maybe it was early Amazon. I don't know.
But Apple had money by then.
Oh yeah.
All right, to bring it home, here's what I want. You are a commercial airline pilot. I am flying tomorrow, and I think we're all in agreement that you pretty much have the only good seat on the plane.
I do.
In the cockpit. What are your pet peeves with people who fly? Because I fly with kids, and the other day we went to get on early, and they wouldn't even. I
hate people that fly with kids.
Me too.
Yeah,
I totally do. Don't you? And so they go, "Hey, people with disabilities will board you now."
Mm-hmm.
And so I walk up with my kids.
Yeah.
And the guy goes, "Oh, we're not boarding you yet." And I said, "Dude, I have 2 kids." And he goes, "No, it's only people with disabilities." And I go, "If you can think of a bigger disability than those 2 children, I help." And so, of course, some woman with a cane gets on. I go, "Don't you want us to board and get them out of the walkway before everyone else gets on?" The guy wouldn't let us. But normally people just let us on. What are your gripes with people who fly?
I don't have many. I don't have to deal with them really because I'm sitting up front behind a
bulletproof door. You talk. The flight attendants come in and tell, they must bitch and moan to you.
I would say probably the biggest thing that's irritating to the flight attendants and to me after that, because I have to deal with it once it gets to my level, is like really hammered people that are disruptive to the passengers around. Because like when I get on a plane as a passenger, I just want to put myself in a little virtual bubble, read my book, pretend I'm somewhere else. And when you have somebody that's super hammered and obnoxious and swearing around kids, and that's a bummer. And I've had to kick a couple people off the plane for being disruptive.
Before you even took off?
Yeah. I've never had to divert and land before, but that's definitely.
Have you had medical emergencies on the flight?
Yeah, just one actually. Nothing super serious.
You just had a bad case of heartburn or something?
No. I mean, I haven't had anybody die, which is not
totally serious. He's like, no. I have really bad heartburn. Can we divert to Oklahoma? I gotta get on the ground.
Tums.
I got some Tums or something, dude.
Yeah.
That's crazy, man. You got anything else, Dennis? What did we learn today?
Well, I was going to ask him what did we learn today.
Oh, there you go. We're learning how to bring this thing home. We kind of talk about what we learned today.
Yeah.
What did we learn today, Dennis?
Well, I actually have a question.
Yeah.
Can I ask the question? Do you get to pick your own call sign, or is it like
no? It's a nickname.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a nickname.
I'm sure guys have tried to call their own call signs.
Oh, that's the worst.
And you're never gonna get it. Yeah. I'm Bones.
Yeah.
Call me Bones, and people are like, well, we're never gonna call you.
You're never
Bones.
gonna get it.
Yeah, you could call Daisy after that or something. The worst thing you could do is try.
What's the worst? I mean, guys have. Obviously, what was his name? Lick me.
Yeah, Lick. Lake Mawini.
That's a bad one.
No, that was a good one.
But it's a bad. Well.
I wish you told.
The fact that his name is Mawini is terrible.
We had, the great thing about Mawini is it was very ripe. We could have come up with 30 different call signs that were pretty amazing.
F Mawini.
Yeah.
Skin Mawini.
Tug
Mawini.
Yeah.
Tug. Actually, Tugs.
Tug would have been, but that was too nice, right? I mean, you gotta. It was a good one, but it was too nice.
Is the camaraderie from the Navy days a little? I mean, that was half the fun when I was in it too. It's like
at least I would say 75%.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a huge part.
Yeah.
You don't miss it?
I don't miss I miss the camaraderie, and I talk about this because I do a lot of benefit shows for the military, and I always talk about the camaraderie was everything. And it was almost like the curmudgeonly, like, we're all in hell together.
Yeah.
And, we're all tired, and we're all mid-watch or whatever and stuff. And the camaraderie was what brought it home. But I do not miss, like, the schedule and the time and it was time-consuming, man.
Yeah,
and
it's like a full-time job.
It's a full-time job. And you know me, I'm not great with those. I don't love full-time jobs. All right, the book is Lions of the Sky. Is that you?
No.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's a buddy of mine, Charles Wickware. I left his name down there. And
Oh,
you
yeah.
can see the tail end of it on his...
Lions of the Sky. It's certainly to be a movie soon because there's female fighter pilots in it.
And they're good.
And they are... It would be terrible if you had one female pilot and she's like, she's the worst pilot in the wing.
It would be a good one.
Have you seen Emily? She crashes every time she goes up. It's a terrible novel. Lions of the Sky. You can buy it on Amazon.
Yep.
I think you just Google it. People always like, where is there a certain place people can come find you or this if they want to have questions and if they want?
Yeah, absolutely. lionsofthesky.com.
Okay.
Set up with all kinds of information, bios, and information about the documentary Speed Angels, and about the book itself.
And about your kids. You talked about your oldest is trying to go to college right now. You're doing the college application.
Yeah,
process.
this week we should find out.
She already take the SATs?
Oh yeah,
she's already so you've already applied. She's applied everywhere.
She's applied.
You're just waiting to hear.
Just waiting.
Oh, I'm sure she's not a nervous wreck about that.
Yeah.
And then you can start paying out heavy money next year when you start to. Yeah, because you do just well enough that you're not going to get any financial aid whatsoever.
Yeah, stuck in middle class forever. That's okay.
He flew into Burbank this morning, Ubered over here to do the podcast, and now he's going back to LAX to fly back.
No.
You're not?
I'm going on a trip. I got my uniform in there. I could put my jacket on if you want.
I thought you were going. You're just going. Where are you going?
I'm going to Atlanta tonight.
Just for fun?
No, for work.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. But you're fine.
Oh, I see.
So this is kind of a layover. This is his layover podcast, and then you fly to Atlanta. You'll stay in Atlanta, and then you'll fly back to San Francisco tomorrow.
No, it's like a 4-day trip.
It is.
Yeah, I'm done on Friday.
Oh.
Yeah.
You should have stayed in the military.
I know.
What the heck? This is crazy. Paco Chierici joined us today, my old buddy. You'll have to come back again once your daughter gets into college, and we'll have to cover those bases. Lions of the Sky, check it out. We learned a lot today. We learned that Nick Bradshaw is Goose, and so remember that for Top Gun too.
I did learn that. That's right.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you guys next time here on the DadLands Podcast.